Hey guys, how's it going? Just wanted to give a little update. I left Prime. So if you kind of see the last couple of videos, it comes as no surprise or anything like that. But I just wanted to give like a little breakdown on my experience. This is not like a bashing video or nothing like that. It's just just my time when I was with the company and my experience in a nutshell. You know, nothing. Yeah, it's a roller coaster of emotions and stuff like that. But I may or may not get into it because I'm a passionate individual. I'm a Jamaican, so that kind of comes up naturally sometimes. All right, so starting things off, I was looking for a company that was going to give me a sense of preparation for this thing that I was basically getting myself involved with, which is trucking. And it was between two companies. It was either between Stevens or Prime. Stevens was a no-go, and Prime, they accepted me, like full on energy, like like, yeah, they were ready for me, waiting for me, like asked me when. I was like, okay. They gave me 30 days. They was like, okay, no pressure, whatever the case is. It was a nice entrance experience overall, in my mind. So got there, and got set up in my room, and made a bunch of friends. Made a bunch of cool friends that like I really respected their stories. Like everybody had like incredible stories as to the reasons why they were there. Like you'd be surprised sometimes. Like if you go through situations like this, or even going through an experience like this, and to just kind of break an ice, like just should hey, what drove you here? You know what I'm saying? And you'd be surprised, like some of the stories that some of these guys have. So uh, I think at the end of the day, it's not only just the the incredible nature of what you become after you go through the training, but is you who you were before you even step foot through that door. At the end of the day, and yeah, uh, Prime really understands that. They really appreciate you for what you do in that nature, and they yeah they set the platform basis for preparing you and setting that foundation for you. And keep in mind, everything that I'm saying where that's concerned is a foundational step. And I will always say this with a clear mind frame. They have the science down as to what to set in place for a driver starting, right? Now, the rest of it is just whatever it is that you make it, like. But the one thing I will say for a fact is, don't go into this whole entire thing too relaxed or at ease. You have to be vigilant. You have to put in the work. You have to be you know up early, and you have to be on time, and you have to because I mean, why not? You have to respect them for what they do, because they're doing this not for themselves but for you as a driver, to make sure that you are as safe and as prepared as you can be when you get ready to get in one of these rigs. So PSD was fun. Like I said, I saw it for what it was, and I excelled at that portion. Made a lot of good friends. Even to this day, I still got friends from that whole experience. I'm a PSD trainer. Like, he checks in on me every now and again. Cool guy. And then TNT for me, in a nutshell, started off rough. Got off that guy's truck, and then they got me with my last and final TNT trainer, which is Uncle Joe. And Uncle Joe was a blessing in disguise, because like I said, this part for me, the TNT portion, when you're out there and you're doing your miles, I think is the most vital and the most critical part of this whole experience. So I was fortunate enough to got placed with a driver who understood me. He understood this notion. He actually laid the foundation that I needed. We both agreed that we wish that we had more time with each other, because he saw the passion that I had, and I saw the passion that he had in teaching me. And you know we had fun while we were out there. There was no it was like a stark difference. So just to put that into perspective, it doesn't mean that because the structure of a company is as good as it is, that the individuals that work for that said company are all great. Because a lot of the drivers that I spoke to in this, since when I was there and I made friends and everything like that, it was a handful of them that had some really bad experience, and they didn't know what to do. They didn't know, where to turn, or how to address or adjust the situation. So this is where I say you need to be vigilant as well too. Make sure you pay attention when you're going through orientation. Take down numbers, take down, contacts of who to reach to and everything like that where that's concerned, in order for you to feel safe. Because one thing I really want to stress, one second, because this thing is a little bit too, hopefully this, all right, here we go. The one thing I really do want to stress is not only your physical safety, but your mental safety as well too, because if you feel nervous while being around that steering wheel, you can make mistakes, and those mistakes can cause something that I don't even want to think about. So yeah, Prime prides itself in safety, because every Friday when they have the meeting, who's the first person that takes that microphone? If people watch those safety meetings, I would say. But if you don't watch those safety meetings every Friday, well, it's now a private meeting now. The safety manager, he introduces himself, and he goes over safety, and then they go down and break down the lines of what to discuss within that meeting at that particular time. So with that being said, if you call any of these representatives while you're out there and you're doing what you're doing, and you say, I do not feel safe, a lot of drivers don't know that that's like a very serious thing that Prime takes, and I do believe, like every other trucking company as well, they take that serious. If you say to them over the phone at any given point in time, I do not feel safe, yeah, that's when they'll say, okay, this driver, he did say that, and we need to adjust the situation, and we need to make some changes. So key tip there, if anybody wants to know how to avoid certain unwanted tension or unwanted energy while they're going through this training period. But anyways, enough of that. Wrapped up TNT. The ending portion of TNT was great for me, and my journey starts. The first 2 years, they were great. There were some ups and downs, but the overall experience was great. The time, it was different from what it is now, because it was like post pandemic, pre-pandemic period, and we were getting paid, but at the same point in time, it was my learning, it was my vesting period, I want to call it. But we drivers were getting paid at that time. it was hard not to make money at that time. Like, no, right now, when you see drivers out there now and they're driving, like, in comparison to when, like, 4 years, 3 years ago or so, and they talk about certain, you know, what they're making now, it's not the same now. It is not the same now. Speak to a lot of drivers, experienced drivers. They say, "Oh, it's gonna get better," but it's a stark difference right now. Right now, trust me. So that's why, like, you have to do your research and to see, what works out best for you in the situation that you're in, to see if that's something that you're willing to, tolerate at this point in time. So, yeah. Then things started to taper off after the 2 years. I started noticing, like these settlements are the line and everything for each load and everything. I started noticing like they kind of starting to taper off. I had to make a decision on putting things in place that it didn't affect me as much, and then it started to get worse. But during that timeline, when I noticed it started to get worse, I got a phone call when I was at the shop in Salt Lake City from my dispatcher. He was saying that he is resigning. He's retiring from being a dispatcher, and I was like, wow, okay. Um, that was kind of like a gut punch, but I'm happy for him. I was happy for him. I wasn't expecting it, but I was happy for him. You know, I'm being salty because I missed having him as a dispatcher. I don't know if you guys can tell. I tend to say stuff that I don't really mean, but it comes from a good place. All right. Um, so we had that talk, and I remember that day. We spoke about Uncle Joe. Like, he said that we made a really good team, and he spoke about how much of a hard work I was, and I really deeply, you know, I do miss him. I do miss having him as a dispatcher. He was a great dispatcher, Curtis Nelson. He was a great guy, a great guy. He was so cool. He was so cool, calm, and level-headed. Like, even when things seemed chaotic, like, he was like, just, he knew how to speak to a driver. That's the thing I appreciated about him. He was that guy. He was that guy for me. He was that guy. He was that guy. All right, so he left, and then we had to make a decision on a new fleet manager. Didn't work out. I don't want to get into that. And then I had to switch that fleet manager for my last fleet manager that I had at Prime, and I just realized that I tried with them. So it was just still not working out. It's still not panning out. So I said, okay, I think now's the time. If there was any a better time than any, I think that was the time. Did some research, spoke to a company that I always see them. I always see their trucks on the road, and I always see how it was just something different about them. And I reached out, and they were talking some really good things. They were talking some really good numbers, some logical numbers for me that made sense, and I made a decision and made the move. But it was a timely decision. Because from the time that I spoke to the recruiter, it was probably like, I want to say 3 months in the making, 3 to 4 months. So it wasn't just like a drop like that. No, I had to make sure that this was something that I was comfortable with. And now that I'm here, I'm not in Kansas anymore, that's for sure. But I'm happy. You can take that for what it is. But like I said from the start, I really do think that the most important thing for a driver is their mental condition to put up with whatsoever it is that they're putting up with. Because we as drivers, especially over the road drivers, we put up with a lot. And we're very patient, you know. If you don't know that, if you don't know about over the road drivers, like if this one thing that this career taught me is patience, you know. So yeah, I'm here, I'm happy, and I am getting myself back together, you know, to get back into producing like all those nice, beautiful 360 view type angle videos that, you know, a lot of people they like. And um, have some new ideas and stuff like that that I'm getting ready to present as well too for my channel. So I do appreciate everyone that has been enjoying the content that I provide so far, and hopefully, you know, in the future you enjoy what's to come as well too. So this right here is just for those who like to, you know, watch my little sit down talk type videos. So yeah, I appreciate that, you know, because I know like TikTok is not really the type of platform for that. So yeah. But yeah, thanks again for watching. Like, comment, and yeah, subscribe. Thanks. Peace. Take care.